Hi, my name is Philip Lindsay and I'm the lead UX designer for the Satellite mobile app. I'd like to invite you today to join me for a walkthrough from discovery to prototyping. So to begin with, the mandate for the course project was to create an app that allowed users to shop and transfer money without using a credit or debit card or without having to go into a physical branch or a physical store. I took that as an opportunity to explore new technology, I would say. Specifically, I saw it as an opportunity to merge the existing world of fiat currency services that you often see in banking apps with that of the trillion-dollar cryptocurrency market that is currently in its growth phase, I would say. You'll have to excuse me, I have a bit of a cough. I am recovering from an illness, but I am very much in the recovery phase, which is great news. So that is the mandate, and that was the opportunity I saw. And so let's dive on in, and I'll give you an overview here. So as you can see, the app is titled Satellite. I'm the lead UX designer. The timeline basically from about December to about April or May was the overall timeline. So in the discovery phase, I took it upon myself to really conduct a thorough kind of user research. I wanted to fully understand where people stood in terms of this new technology as well as in terms of the older fiat currency services and what people wanted. So as a hypothesis, I hypothesized that creating this fully integrated app would allow people to actually participate in this growing market. I saw many potential benefits as well as current pain points for users as listed here. My target audience I mainly drew from Gemini Market Research, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, as well as just overall general financial market research. As you can see, I divided the users into fiat users and crypto users to basically tailor the app more specifically to both demographics, at the same time trying not to lose either. The competition, I highlighted mainly PayPal and SoFi Financial Services were the two ones that cropped up in my competitive analysis. I saw a lot of risk here as well as opportunity. I saw the risk being kind of overwhelming users with too many abilities or options. I saw the opportunity as being one of the first apps developers to be combining these two technologies, something that I've seen as a growing trend. And then again, just kind of big scope, I saw this as kind of a partnership with regional banks to try to allow users to feel more security when it comes to exploring cryptocurrency, and also allowing access to users who are traditionally going to be more and more likely the later users for new technology. So I conducted a user survey and went beyond my mandate by also creating kind of follow-up questionnaires for those who were surveyed. As you can see, a lot of the patterns here, most folks were using about 2 to 3 apps, and also a lot were using national banks. Many noted that they wanted a single financial app, about 6 out of 7, that zero fee transactions were important, security was important as well, and about half were crypto curious. I followed that up with 3 in-depth user interviews. As you can see, they reflect kind of a varied background of users. So we have one who is kind of just using banking apps irregularly as a freelancer. We have one person who's very much into stocks and opportunities and has been using the same credit union for about 20 plus years. And then we have our last user who is more crypto curious, leaning more into the new technology. When it came time developing user personas, I again wanted to make sure that each one was tailored specific to really kind of address each demographic. So I created very in-depth user personas here. I highlighted their goals, their needs, their behaviors, and their frustrations that they expressed in the user interviews. When it came to concepting, initially, I think that I kind of based a lot of my concepting off of SoFi and PayPal in the competitive analysis. I began to move away from that a bit more as I developed more of an understanding of grids and how and what was needed in terms of the usability studies and what people expressed as frustrations in the usability studies. I also was influenced heavily by the accessibility Web 3.0 guidelines. And here you can see the desktop version, which was done as like a side project with the mobile app being the main focus. During usability testing, again, I wanted to measure comfortability with onboarding because this is a new technology. I thought that would be important to know how people react. Also, if users are able to find the services on the app, if it's easily accessible and navigationally not too complicated, and then also to evaluate if users find the system overall appealing, if there's any relevancy to it, and if the uniformity is clear. So I had 6 individuals. I went into, I did some guerrilla testing. I went to a cafe, again, going out beyond my mandate. I really wanted to fully immerse this app in the wider world beyond my network. So you can see I had 6 individuals. And yeah, I kind of, excuse me, I broke it down in terms of their initial impressions and their closing thoughts because I figured it would be a way to show some brief development the same way it's important to kind of encapsulate an idea from kind of origins to closing thoughts. So I figured it would be a way of kind of showing a timeline of their experience in the usability study. So in the final stages of prototyping, I developed a style guide. Again, I went with the colors that were most commonly associated with the 2 technologies. So the orange is often is a signifier for Bitcoin. It is one of the largest cryptocurrencies, one of the most notable, one of the original ones, and kind of a poster child color of cryptocurrency. And the light blue is often portrayed in the cryptocurrency world as a color associated with fiat. So I went with those 2 base colors and then found complementary ones. Again, adding iconography, making sure that people felt there was a relevancy to it, as well as an accessibility element to it, making sure that it felt a little playful with imagery and animation, and then moving forward, keeping kind of a uniformity with buttons, making sure that they are large enough to be clickable and not too small or too hidden. I chose backgrounds that were strong and appealing, eye-catching, focused on grid work to make sure that things were placed in a way that felt natural and organic. Lastly, I went through some peer reviews, and that was kind of the last stage after the usability studies to kind of fine-tune my prototypes. And as you can see here, a variety of small and major changes. You can see the backgrounds were changed from thumbnail pictures to full screen images, as well as interactive calendar was added. The days of the week was added for more clarity. Colors were changed, and yeah. And then at the very end, we have the clickable prototype. So that was the project in its entirety from beginning to end. Major discoveries along the way, I would have to say, were the discovery that a lot of people have serious reservations about cryptocurrency. They also need a real helping hand in the onboarding process. It's a new market, and these individuals are either curious about it, knowing somewhat about it, or they themselves don't know anything about it. And that onboarding process is going to be really essential. So when it comes to marketing an app like this, I think it's going to be key. It's going to be really key to make the elements of the app that are crypto not overwhelm users who are interested in using it for banking apps or financial services, but also making those features stand out in a way that is not too serious or scary, but more playful and interactive. Yeah, and those are some discoveries along the way that I think influenced the project as a whole for me towards the end. Okay, I'd like to move on, excuse me, to the questions. So there were 4 questions. To begin with, have I ever given feedback to someone else's designs before, and have I received feedback on my own? I'd say yes, I have. So there was a peer review portion to this course project, and during that I received feedback and I gave feedback. I would say the important things that I remind myself is just to stay respectful, not emotive, especially with your language. Again, remembering that the project is just that. It's a project. It's not an extension of your ego. So when receiving criticism or comments, just keep that in mind, that it is important to receive that, to develop your project so that you are not stuck defending something that is an extension of yourself as opposed to a piece of work that should be there to fulfill others' needs. And then lastly, just recognize that anything is an opinion. At the end of the day, you don't have to agree with someone for it to be helpful. You also it's not important for you to agree with someone to change something. It's up to you ultimately whether the opinion is going to be helpful and whether to incorporate it into the development of your app. So the second question, how would your teammates describe you professionally? That's a great question. I would say probably approachable, creative, intuitive, engaging, curious, and grounded. Those are a few words that come to mind. And then tell me about a difficult project where you overcame a challenge. So the project that comes to mind is I was tasked with leading the script overhaul. I was tasked with overhauling the scripts for a theater where I was a performer. We noticed this because when we were performing the shows, we were often, as performers, updating the language because we found students were not engaging with us in the right way or were pulling back because of the language. So on the fly, we were kind of adapting. That adaptation led me to think, okay, it might be time to overhaul the scripts, to revise them and edit them. So I was tasked with that, and so I went about it by engaging with the students who we were performing for. So when we would do performances, I would give the performers script revisions, and on the fly we would add those revisions and see how the students reacted. And at the end of the show, if there was time, we would then ask the students what they thought of that specific scene, and we would get their feedback in that way. We also sent out surveys to teachers to understand more about what they wanted to hear or what they wanted to see. So that is how I kind of tackled that problem. Again, being on the front line, being a performer, feeling that adaptation or that need to change, using that need that I myself felt, and then seeing if it was reflected in the users and seeing if it was reflected in the students, because ultimately the show was for their benefit. So last question, think of a question you'd like to ask the interviewer. I would say I would like to ask, or I'd ask the interviewer, what is one piece of advice you'd give someone breaking into this industry? That would be my question for the interviewer. Thank you so much. My name is Philip Lindsay, and the app I developed is called Satellite.